Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, guys, this is another video where we are going to study more about how to implement the index method. So, in our controller, we have an index method here, and if you remember, usually what does the index method do? We don't have it here, we can just create it, no problem. In the customer controller, we have it. So, similarly, we will have an index method in our room controller as well. What does the index method do? In all the controllers, the index method is responsible for sending all the data from the UI, from the database into the UI. So it's going to display all the details of the rooms. Okay, so it will actually grab all the room details and display them into the room. I'm going to just go to the room UI, and then we are going to work from there. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to restructure this item. Okay, so we want to change this layout a little bit. So we have this UI, which hotel you are adding the room to, and then the room number doesn't have to be this big, so we'll make it a little bit smaller, and these two items we'll move them here. So what is the room number, and then the room type as well doesn't have to be this big, so these two we'll also move, these two maybe some little bit bigger, these two we can move here. Okay, and what is the room price? Room price also doesn't have to be that big. So another option you can do is you can actually bring them down here like this. So choose the hotel, keep the label here, then the drop down underneath it. Same way, the room number appears here, then we put the room number here like this, make it a little bit smaller, and bring it the same level as the drop down, make the drop down also a little bit smaller, same level. Room number, so choose the hotel, choose the room number, and the room type. The room type, what is the room type? So we have another little drop down here, which is a little bit bigger, so let's make it smaller, and there it is. I hope it's the same size. Yeah, it's the same size. Oh, okay, there it is. So room type, bring it a little bit to the left, and this is the room type. And the room price, okay, what is the price of this room? They will enter it. So move this, doesn't have to be this big again, so you are going to move this here. Okay, so this is one example of a small panel, and you can see here a button panel also is 1 2 3 4 buttons, and these items also we could move them here. So what we are going to do is we are going to make all of them smaller this way, and see if you can grab them here to the right. So let's grab it to the this way and drag this and try to put it here. If it is too big, we can make it smaller. No, this is not this one. I'm just trying to make this item a little bit smaller, and even from the top and bottom. Okay, so move them to the center of this panel and move the panel here to the same level, almost something like this. See, so if I run the program, I have rooms appearing like this. See, let me try to show it separately to you like this. So what is the hotel you'll choose, and the room number you'll say, for example 205, which penthouse, room price 2500, 3500, for example. Add oh, what does his customer exist? So definitely there's a mistake in the coding, so you have to remember in the room table, room controller, when you are adding something, it says customer exist, room exist. Remember about those mistakes. So there is a room called 205 in holiday in already, so let's make it 204. Add. Okay, room saved to the database. I want to add one more room here, 203, also but little bit cheaper, not a penthouse but a small family suite. Those are not cheap, right? Let's make it expensive, 5000, and add. Okay, now I will add another 203 again, but this is not student suite, and it's available for 1500 in Pinnacle Hotel. Add. Yeah, so what I really want to do is show a table here at the bottom and show in all the rooms that we are adding, so that way it will become refresh automatically and show all the rooms down here. Alright, so One of the things we can do is we can go to the room UI, and here we can grab this frame to the bottom of the screen, and then there is a panel here. Let's make it smaller. Then we'll grab another panel here into the frame, into the frame, and then we are going to start it from here until here. Then this will span across to the bottom and up to this one. Save it. Then I'm going to grab something called the JTable. See here, a JTable. See, this is a table. It says table, but it is actually a JTable. You can see. Okay, so this is going to be the table, and the table is going to look like this, little bit bigger, and this is the one that's going to appear into the panel. We are going to grab, make it bigger like this. So automatically it's going to have a scroll bar. If the table becomes full, there'll be a scroll bar here, so don't worry about that. And we are going to right click and change this variable name. This is room table. And when it comes to table, the tables have columns and the table has rows. What are the columns? The columns are these columns that is in the database. The room hotel ID, and we are not going to show hotel ID, of course. We are going to show hotel name, hotel ID, room number, room type, status, and price. Actually price will come first, then status, something like that. We can show in any way we want. These are the hotel column names, and the table rows are what is in the database. So if you query now, we have more because we added more just now. So we want to display all these things nicely here so that the admin can see them. Okay, and when we are displaying them, instead of hotel ID, we are going to display hotel name. We are not going to display this field, but this field will be the one we are using when we are actually querying the database and changing things around. And there's a null value here. I'm going to just change it here because it's not supposed to be null, but we could of course change that right later. Okay, so does the room edit works? If the room edit works, we can actually edit this room. What is this room? We can search for, let me just try to see if there is a search feature for the room. Room, okay, I want to search for, I think we haven't implemented it. Yeah, no problem, we'll do that later. It's there in the customer, so you try to implement it yourself first. Okay, so we have this table here, so all the rooms that are added, we want to display them here in this table. When it comes to tables, there is something important, and that is we have to implement something known as a table model. Okay, so you go here, create a new class, new Java class, and you call this as room table model. Room table model, right? So every table need to be connected to some kind of a table model. So a room is going to be connected to a room table model. And what happens in a room table model is you are first going to create all your columns. What are the columns that you want to display? And in this case, remember, columns equal an array. You will predefine them. It's almost how you want to display them. They are not exactly how the database shows. Hotel name you'll write, because this is how you want to display them as headers in the Java table. Hotel name, room number. So we have hotel name, which is going to be this one instead of hotel ID. Then room number. In this hotel you have this room number, and this room is room type. What type of room? We will display that also like that. Room type. What type of room is that? How much is this room? Is the room available or not? So price, and then we'll call it availability. Okay, availability. Yeah, availability, something like this. Okay, you could even call it status if you like. So this is basically the room table model that you are creating. Okay, and you will need a constructor. So insert the code for constructor. That's basically a default constructor with nothing. See, like this. It is used because later on we have to initialize it. That's why we are using it. So that is what you will write. The rest of it is you are going to generate, and that is by implementing, not by implementing, by inheriting from extends abstract table model. So abstract table model allows us to create a simple table, and you have to import this. Okay, so import Java X swing table abstract table model. So once you do this, you say you are asking to extend, so you have to abide by the rules. So this abstract table model has several abstract methods, which is why you are getting this error. See, saying implement all abstract methods. We will implement them. You either use NetBeans and click this button to implement these, or you manually write them, all of them, override. So when you generate them, it's going to create this throwable. So you have to remove that part, because if the method is empty, then that should exist. But when we are going to implement it, we don't need this throw part. Okay, so let me try to explain here what happened. So these methods are actually coming from abstract table model. Why? Because any table that you create must have how many rows are there. You should know, because how can you display a table if you don't know how many rows are there? Get column count, how many columns are there? You know, you can already see here these are the number of columns. So you can, in this case, of course, it will be easier. You just say return column dot length. So you already have your columns array that length. This is going to be number of columns. So you have these number of columns. That means 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 columns. That already is gone. Okay, also there is another item here that this has not actually implemented. Do we have no? Yeah, get column count, get row count. Okay, how do you know how many rows are there? Integer number of rows, we don't know initially, of course, so we are returning this, return number of rows. Always try to create your methods like this. This is like stub. You can always test it easily without even if it works or not. You can always return something, that way you don't have errors. So we have to find out number of rows and return, then only the you can display. Okay, so what do you do? You go to the database, and then you are going to count the number of rows, right? So you are going to create here a method in the database. So number of records equals to number of rows. You are going to reassign them equal to, we will ask the database controller to give it for us. Database controller dot, of course it doesn't have it yet, sorry, not database controller, room controller, because how many rows are there in the room table, the room controller should know. Dot get room count, get room count, right? So what we expect is, we expect the room controller to give us this value. This we will implement later. Okay, so here we need to implement this function at the end of room controller. Public, what are the numbers? It's an integer value, you have to return. Get room count, how many rooms are there. So you just implement return. Right now you just say return 3 for now. We will actually create this later in the room controller. So now number of rows equal to room controller dot get room count. This has to be static method, static, then only the class name can be used like this. So number of rows equal to room controller dot get room count. Okay, how does room controller get that information? It gets that information by sending it to the database and counting how many rows are there. That we will do first. Okay, and then get column count, how many columns are there. You already done this. Okay, look at this function. What is this? So you are saying that you have, for example, 3 rows and 4 columns. You know, if that is the case, what is the item that should appear on row 1, column 1? You know, row 2, column 2. You know, row 1, column 2, row 1, column 3. For each row, what is the column that should appear? That is what get value at means. And you can see here, you already know, hotel name is the uh, first name you're going to have. You know, okay. So what we will do is, in order to get the values at a specific location, we have to use switch case in this case. How? You know, these i's and these ions are misleading, so let us replace them with something meaningful. And this is actually row index. Which row, which column? That's what it is actually. Row, column. So this identifies the row. Row number 1, column number 2. What is there? You know, that's what it will actually means. So what you'll do is you will say get value at this specific location using the row index and column index. What happened here? Column. This is actually column. So in order to find out which row you are referring to, you know, for example, here in the database you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. So row 2, column 1, this is the value, you know. So there is a catch here. So you have to know exactly which record you are referring to. Are you referring to the first item, the second item, the third item? You know. So you have to actually retrieve this from the database and return. Yeah. So in the get value at function, first of all you need to get all the room IDs in your database system, in your room table. So that is also going to be a value. In addition to all the columns, you need to know what are the room IDs available. Let me tell you that part again. So we are going to create an array list here, array list of strings. Okay, it's easier to create strings. These, we are going to take a list of these things. First column, we are going to store them separately. That way we can easily know which column, which row we are referring to. Okay, so this is how we do them in Java. Of course, there are many other ways we can do that. New array list. I'm just showing an example where somebody might have a better way. So we have this array list which we are going to use in order to store the room IDs. Okay, array list. Yeah. And then here, room IDs. What are the room IDs? Is equal to, what are the room IDs? Room controller should give us this. Room controller dot get room IDs. You know, it should go to the database and bring to us all the database columns. This is what we call as room IDs. Okay, why do we need that? We need that because we have to go to the database, grab that specific room ID, and then show it in the table by using column index. Okay, you will understand that when I show you that example here. So get room IDs doesn't exist, and we are going to just go to the room controller here. Like this, we are going to create public static. It's supposed to return an array list of string, and this function is called get room IDs. Okay, so what it is supposed to do is it's supposed to go into the database, array list string room IDs, and it is supposed to return actually new array list string, and put them inside this array list and return it. Return room IDs. So here we have to retrieve these items from the database, and then we have to return them to the rooms table. Of course, here also you have to return an item, and you have to return multiple items here, okay, depending on which column you are, which row you are referring to. So if you have 1 row, 2 row, 3 row, for each row you are going to run this get value at function. By default, the Java JTable will run this for every row. Okay, so you are going to find out which row you are referring to, and then retrieve from the room controller again the details of all the rooms. So you see, where is the room? See here, this is the room, right? So you are going to create a room sample room record, room record, you know. So you are referring to a room. Of course, every time you are going to retrieve one room from the database and then display it into the table. Go to the database, grab one room, display it to the database. Does not the display it to the interface. That's what you are going to do. So which room record? Okay, ask room controller dot get room record. Okay, and in this case you are just going to return a room, and then you're going to say from the room table. You know, you already have all your room IDs here inside this array list, and then you are going to get which row you are referring to. Row, see. So if you are looking for the first row, then you are going to get the room record of the first row, meaning you are going to get everything here, this line. If it is the second one, you are going to get everything here, one by one you are going to retrieve. That's what this room does. Every time you ask for a record, you are going to retrieve it from the database first. So get room record, provided this is the room ID, you know, that specific room ID. So you do an SQL query to get that. This is a function again on your room controller. Okay, so the controller will do everything for us. What is it going to return? It's going to return a room record. So public static room, you're going to return a room, and this is the function name, and inside it will be the room ID. So this is going to be a string room ID. You can call it as RMID, room ID, or just room ID is also fine. Okay, so provided the room ID, you are going to return a room. So let's create a room here, room db room, okay, equal new room. You're going to return this room, and let's return db room. We are going to grab this information from the database and reassign it. Okay, here we are going to do the database part. I'm dividing it into two different tutorials, that way you can also follow it. Yeah, so in order to remove the errors here, so try to understand that scenario here. You're going to return. Okay, so the table part is a little bit tricky to understand, try to pay attention. So what you're going to do is you're going to switch which column you're looking for. So you know, column, there are 5 columns, so 0, 1, 2, 3, like that it's going to ask. So if you are going to look for the first column, then you're going to return that room record dot get the hotel. In this case, of course, you are getting the hotel ID, but in reality you are actually going to get the hotel name, not hotel ID. So we will get the hotel ID first, and then we will convert it into hotel name. Okay, for now it will be hotel ID. Of course, we will grab the hotel name by doing a subquery. Case 1, that is going to be return room record dot get room number. So remember, you have to get in this order: hotel name, room number. So dot get room number, and case 2, you're going to return room record dot let's look at this number, room type, the type of room, dot get room type. Okay, this is the column. If you are referring to this column, then that's what you are going to return. So try to pay attention and follow exactly. You will easily understand when you see the data. So return room record, and you can see here after the room type is the price, dot get room price, and the last one is of course the availability or the status. So you have case 4 is going to return room record dot get the room status, which is going to be the availability. Then our use case is closed, or switch case is closed. So column, based on which column you are looking for. If this is a 0 column, 0th column means this column. You are going to return hotel name. First column you are going to return room number. This is how we are going to code this. And then of course it has these return statements. But this line missing return statement. So it doesn't have a return statement, and it says missing return statement because we don't have a default statement here. So we are going to have a default here, and then default will be return room number or something. You can just return anything actually. Okay, that's it. Return like this, empty, without the default, and the function is incomplete. Yeah. So you can see we didn't create them. They come from this parent class called abstract table model, and it forced us to implement them. So we override this, we override this, we override this. Okay, so that's how this value was able to actually get us the details. Okay, so there's some error somewhere. Where is the error? This error is there. Let's see if our brackets are closed properly. This is the closer of this. Okay, so there's an extra bracket here. Okay, so that's our class. Yeah, okay. So this is what our table model looks like. Table model extends abstract table model, and that results in creating all these overridden functions, and you will write almost exactly the same in other cases also. And the reason why you are grabbing the room IDs here is because everything is in the database, and we want to remember the order of these room IDs so that we can go to the database and query one by one from the database. Okay, so try to do the same thing on the customer controller. You create a customer room model, not customer room model, customer model, and try to implement abstract table model here. So for any case where you want to display a room like this, you actually have to grab the information. You have to pass the information into the controller and get the information from the controller, and the controller will query the database controller, and the database controller is going to give you this information. Once you have this information from the database, then you're just going to show it into the table here. Okay, so try to have all your models modified this way to have a table at the bottom where you can display all the tables information instead of having an interface here. Yeah, so table model implementation is the content of this video. There are no errors here, but still our controller is incomplete because our controller has returned the amount of rooms that are there, get room count. The same way you'll return get customer count, get activity count, get hotel count. You have to do those things, and they are typical. They are the same way you're going to do. So, and also bring all the room IDs from the database. This also you have returned from the database. Go to the database and query all the room IDs. Same way you'll do the same thing for hotel. Get all hotel IDs from the database. Get all customer IDs from the database. Meaning all the primary keys actually. So you're going to have a separate array where you are going to remember exactly how you are going to display this information in the table. Then you'll query them to the database. And get room record meaning get a specific room record. If I give you room ID, go to the database and grab it for me. That's what this does. The same way you're going to create get customer record, get hotel record from the database. Okay, get activity record. So this is how the template works. And now we will end this video with that, and then we'll create another small video where you can implement the functions for room count and also room ID and room record by sending the data into the database controller. Okay, so I did not want to make the video complicated and lengthier, so there you have it. Drag and drop of a RAM table and drag and drop of all the items about the table, realigning, rearranging stuff, and creating and implementing something known as a table model and implementing it using abstract table model. So next we will try to make a video where we can actually implement these things in more details. Right now if you query, there is nothing because there is no details coming from the database, which is what we will try to do. And remember that database section is not common for room. You're going to do the same thing for room, same thing for hotel, same thing for customer. Okay, in fact same thing for booking, same thing for ticketing, all those things, same thing for schedule or event. Okay guys, so thank you very much for watching. Let's follow up for the next video where you will see a complete working example of the room with the database queries implemented. Bye bye.